Hey, how's it going? Happy Thursday. Happy Bingo Thursday, Sally.
Hey, Bianca, good to see you.
It's good to see you. I only get to see you like through a small, tiny peanut portion of the screen every Thursday for forbiddenbingo.com. But yeah. So hey, listeners, this is please don't kick me out.com season 3. We've been doing this for 3 years, and I have a lovely guest that I met through all the virtual things I do. And it's actually one of my unofficial sponsors, which is of course Forbidden Bingo with DJ Rockstar Aaron, based out of Denver and online. This is Sally. Sally, would you like to give your overview, who you are, what you do, etc.?
Sure. So I live in Chicago and but I've lived um in Wisconsin, Florida, Nashville, now Illinois. So I've made kind of the north-south circle. I'm a clinical health psychologist by training, and I work now at Northwestern University doing research, and I am a loyal pet person.
Hey,
This is
Annie.
my dog Annie, but have had other pets as well. So I like to volunteer for pet-oriented organizations.
Yeah, and that's something I love about Sally. It's like, one, she's probably the smartest person that plays this Forbidden Bingo in the sense of she knows more about the human brain than I think anyone in the world does. But also she is just such a kind individual, and someone that, as I've gotten to know over the years, I just find you just such a unique person in so many ways. But like, you just have such a kind heart, and you really love what you do. But like, the biggest thread and what we connect on completely is that we both have dogs that are like completely our babies, and we would do anything for them. And we also have a lot of similar interests. So I'm very happy to have you on the podcast. So thank you, Sally, for taking the time to be on my podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a very generous introduction. And I should say that we also are former figure skaters.
We are. I used to have, because like my ADHD tick is I like will rub my hands and stuff. And I had a Bath and Body Works like snow one that had skates on it. And then I took it outside for some reason. So I do have it. Yeah. We both figure skated. How old were you when you started figure skating?
Oh man, I was probably like 4 or 5.
I was 4.
Yeah.
My,
I
yeah.
mean, it's a limited range that you can do, right?
Right.
Like it's not going to be like a midlife sport for most people.
Well, my mom tried it as a midlife sport and she fell and like cracked her
Um,
head open. And so she was like, no, no
yeah,
skating for
so it's
me.
probably not a good idea.
Yeah, but
I mean, we
yeah.
probably all like the only time I ever had a concussion, Bianca, was figure skating.
One time someone's toe pick went through my knee. That was fun.
Yeah, I'm
It was
sure.
like I got Tanya Harding to like some girl on the ice skating rink. No, I
Oh
didn't
my
really.
God.
I
Well,
didn't really. I ran into her.
at least it was just once.
Right, right. Yeah, I think I still have the scar, but yeah, I was born in Minnesota. For my listeners that don't know, I was born in Minnesota. I moved to Colorado when I was 10, but my dad really wanted to have boys and have them play soccer, but instead he had girls. So he was like, well, what can they do? What sport can they do? My dad became like the ultimate figure skating dad. My sister did really well. And in my first competition ever, like maybe this is where I had imposter syndrome. Hiawatha Lands. They put me in a category. I had a Russian skating coach named Lydia, and her daughter was the choreographer. And my dad was like really excited. He's like, B, you can really do this. Spoiler alert, couldn't. And they put me in one division above what I should have been. So I placed 8th out of 8th. Yep.
Well, you know what? My first competition, I also placed last. So,
Yeah, high five, air five. We're good at this. But I feel like all of my dance moves are very Elaine from Seinfeld. And like, I'm thinking about getting into drag right now and doing like drag king. I've wanted to do it forever, but I was showing Scott last night, my partner, how like I dance. And he was just like, okay, like, I mean, I hope that they're okay with that. And I was like, it's fine. I dance very like this. So that was me on skates.
yeah. Well, you know what? It it can be painful at the time, but you have lots of life lessons that you take from
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
skating that you don't
Yeah.
realize until years later,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And I also feel like it helps with balance because I bought like roller skates, the quad skates, like everyone did during the pandemic. And I thought, I'm going to get really into roller skating. I'm totally great on roller skates, but I've only used them like 3 times. Because where we live in San Diego, there was just too many rocks. And I was like, I'm going to fall and break my face. But then out here, there's an ice skating rink. So when my friend and I went, And I realized like, oh, I'm really not that bad on this. Just the stopper. It's weird to like dig your toe down to stop for me because it's not like a skate where it catches you. You kind of just
You
kind of,
don't have the
you
toe
go, "Ah,"
kick?
yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I haven't skated in so long either. And I tried to, like I told you, Sally, they reopened the ice
Yeah.
rink, but it's Hawaii. And so the line was all the way to Maui.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, and probably craziness ensued inside that rink.
Oh, I can only imagine. But I mean, it's something to do. So I'm like, you know what? You guys enjoy your ice rink. Eventually I'll go. I mean, we get stationed somewhere cold, I'll definitely pick back up the skates. But it's something that I did all like pretty much all through my, I think I was like maybe 9 when I stopped because we moved. And then there was no ice rinks near where we moved. So that kind of fell off by the wayside. But I loved it. I can still do it. I know that. Scott's never been
Yeah.
with me. Yeah, it's a skill you don't
Well,
lose.
one of these days we'll have to go skating.
Yeah, we will. We'll choreograph a routine. We'll hold mittens or like
Oh
gloves.
my gosh, yes. Yes.
So, Sally, thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I actually,
Sure.
I've had a few people and from the mental health perspective on here before. Obviously, you're a friend of mine. You're someone that I care very deeply for. You're part of my family, and you're my sister from another Mister and ice skating twin. You're my pairs duplicate from another state. But I love that you were interested in this podcast because as someone that from the outside looking in would go, wow, you have all these accomplishments. I know you too can suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to start with the first question, which
Okay,
is,
fire away.
do you feel like you have it all figured out?
No.
No.
No, I don't. Well, when you say it, do you mean like life
Life.
or
Yeah. I guess
no,
like the thing we're doing. Yeah. That's
no,
normal
no,
though.
I don't. And I think that I maybe shared this with you or perhaps it was somebody else. But I was going back because I was trying to find my old grad school essays and my personal statement was framed around the theme of I want to have a life that makes sense.
Well, does
And
it?
I don't know that that's possible.
Mm-mm.
I think that was naive of me at the
No,
time.
it's not naive. I mean, truly, nothing's made sense for like ever. I mean, the world in which we both lived through and gone through and are still continuing to go through, no one predicted that. I mean, I thought it was going to be 2023 and I was going to have like rocket shoes. And like
Yeah.
I'd be teleporting to Chicago to hang out with you. No, not at all, not at all. Instead, I'm losing my iWatch in a terminal of Houston, and they can't get it back to me. So technology is a lot to be remiss, but you know, hey, I think that's pretty normal, Sally. I mean, I think it's funny that you say that because I remember like thinking back on like statements I wrote in college because I graduated with my bachelor's and I was kind of like, that's enough. Because I work in marketing and so it's like not really a big deal, but it wasn't something like to go back to school wasn't really something like I wasn't really striving to. I think I've always wanted to do something more than marketing, and I kind of fell into marketing, wanted to do advertising and I wanted to do broadcast and everything. And now I'm doing it all. My mom says I don't use my degree, but I was like, yeah, I do. Every day. Everyone's marketing everything. But I think like when I was in college, I originally went for graphic design because I really wanted to do graphics, but I had like a professor that kind of doubted me my first semester. And I was like, well, this is hard. I don't like it. I'll go back to doing what I was doing, which was journalism. I was a newspaper editor all through high school. And I remember looking back at my portfolio of work the last time I was visiting my parents of like my capstone, quote unquote. It wasn't capstone, but it was like my final project for my public relations class. I just laughed at it. I was like, wow, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I thought I was really going to change the world when really all I'm doing is like debating like what logo color something should be.
But you know what? I think that along those lines, like if we didn't believe those things, then we wouldn't be where we are,
Oh yeah.
because you have to be hopeful in some way. It's just that you grow up a little and
Yeah.
find that things aren't quite how rosy and easy you thought. Like I thought that, oh, if I can just get into graduate school, oh, if I can just finish my PhD, then I will be happy. but that's
Like,
not really the
yeah.
case.
And this, it's funny you say that, because like it's I can kind of relate that to maybe not necessarily me and my career, but from the military spouse perspective. And I know you've worked with the veterans in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like where
Sorry,
something
that just
that
blew my nose.
oh, you're okay. Bless you. It's cold.
Yeah, it is.
So
Okay.
I was gonna say that military spouses and military families have a tendency to be like, if we just get through this deployment, we're going to be happy. If we just make it to this duty station, we're going to be happy. If we get this amount of money, we're going to be happy. And I think like everyone in life has a tendency to do that. But I think like something I've had to learn, and something that you and I were kind of talking about for manifestations of 2023, is there's lots that we want to do and there's lots that we are hopeful for, but we're wanting to be more just content with what we've got, and finding the gratitude in those things, and then maybe the rest will follow. That's kind of where I've been going in my brain recently, but I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes we shoot for the stars and the stars are a little too high, and so lowering that down into more meaningful, kind of achievable.
Yeah. Like right now, the achievable goal for Sally and me is to organize one closet in her houses. And I didn't do it today. I haven't done it. Tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. I had to get a podcast out today. So I was like, well, that, and then I was battling United, and I was using my first portion of my ADHD meds to hyper focus on anything than the thing I had to do today.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that, Bianca, that speaks to the fact that like it's so easy to give up our personal goals to things that happen to interfere.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't necessarily always prioritize our own things as much as we do the things that we think have to be done.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So when I came to you about being on this podcast about imposter syndrome, and I've been doing this for 3 years, and this is the first time I've had someone give me such like an eloquent answer. I just read it. I mean, everyone gives me a different answer, what it means to them and how they perceive it and how it's changed their life and shaped their life. I love your last sentence. I just finished reading it. So let's ask the question. It's a mouthful. Do you feel like you fit in or suffer from imposter syndrome? In what ways? And what does imposter syndrome mean to your life?
Well, to answer the first question, yes, I do. I think it's ooh, I'm trying to be eloquent. It's a high bar. Sometimes there are high expectations when you're perceived as a psychologist, that you're supposed to know everything and do everything right, and I certainly don't. Not only in my personal life, as we could go
He doesn't get
into.
any airtime. We don't get any airtime.
No,
Yeah.
we're not gonna mention he who will not be mentioned. But also like I should know better. But and I do, but I still make mistakes. And so I'm an imposter in that way, I would say. I feel like at work, I also sometimes feel like an imposter because even though I know that I have the expertise and the experience to do what I want, as a woman in academia, I'm often diminished. And sometimes maybe that's because I let myself be, but not intentionally. So that's where I feel myself an imposter also sometimes, is that like just getting people to listen to what I have to say.
Yeah. Oh man, I have a lot to say to both points. The first one is, I don't think that here's my unpopular opinion right now, just off the bat, is just because, okay, so I as your friend, I ask you before I ask, like, hey, I have a mental health question. Like, do you have the space? Can you point me in the right direction? I know better than to come to you from a therapy perspective because you're my friend. And I think that a lot of people don't realize they shouldn't do that. But also I think, you're human. Like you're not gonna have all the answers. And you also, it's a thankless job sometimes to have to solve people's lives and just hope that you're like helping enough or doing enough. So I can totally understand that. And then when you said that about yourself, like where you're like, I don't practice what I preach, basically, I know the learnings, I know how my brain is, but then like, I still find myself doing those things. No one's perfect. I've met some really fucked up people who are mental health professionals in life, and I'm sure you have as well. And it's okay. Just like, you know, you kind of helped me through figuring out if this was the right fit for me for a therapist. And then I ended up finding an even better one based on language cues that you kind of had me look for. And I was really grateful for that. And so I can't thank you enough, because I found someone that actually works for me because I asked you, and if you had the space to help me with that. So I appreciate that. But to go back to like how you were speaking about that yourself, it's like, yeah, I mean, like just because you're you have the training and you're a psychologist and you do those things doesn't mean that you yourself didn't have inherent trauma as a child or an adult or whatever that might have impacted the way that you perceive your own relationships. You might be able to compartmentalize and do the therapy part, but like you're still a human outside of it. And you can't have all the answers, and you can't like live on eggshells. So, hey, we all make mistakes. I mean, gosh, I still find myself in cyclical patterns I'm trying to break, and that's normal. And I think like if we weren't trying to find that about ourselves, then I think that would mean that we are broken people that are beyond repair, but we're just people.
Right. I mean, I was thinking, earlier today about like, am I a magnet for this type of bad relationship, or am I a moth to the flame?
Ooh.
And I think that's an important thing to think about is, what is it that draws me to those things? And that's something that I need.
Yeah. I would wonder if
I think it's a combination.
Yeah. I think it'd be a combination of like your professional life kind of bleeding into your personal, where there's like a maternal, like I need to help you. And Scott calls it, because the book, the therapist I had that didn't work out, she did have me read a book, which I appreciated, called like Dodging Energy Vampires, which is good for boundaries, but also like it was helpful, yes, but it's also like now you're closing yourself off to any potential relationship. But then I'm definitely trying not to do that 100%, but I'm definitely more wary than I was, say, before, where I'd jump head first. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. Why is this person like remind me of someone toxic in my life? And why are they making me feel this way? And why is it? And then suddenly I'm like, I have to cleave it, because it's just like, I can't have that in my situation. And my current therapist has told me that she believes that it's because of where I'm at with my journey and self-actualization. She believes that it's okay to have careful relationships with people who might be triggering, to test how good your boundaries are and to test how well you're doing, and kind of use them as a marker. And I was like, that's kind of fucked up to say, but hey, if you think about it, like that's
a scary proposal, but
yeah, she's like, if you feel strong enough. And so I tested it, and I went from no contact to contact again with my mother, who didn't do anything wrong. I just couldn't have two toxic people in my family talking to me at the same time. So I tested it there, and I really held firm with my boundaries when I told my mom what was going on. And I've been sick it's what they think is anxiety related IBS. I won't know until this week. I have my follow-up with my actual gastro doctor, and Sally even with me along the way with that. But she said, did you test your boundaries? And I was like, yeah, because I knew that it wouldn't, with my mom, I knew that it wouldn't be a problem. Like I could just hang the phone up and then just not pick it back up, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings, because I have enough 34 years worth of dealing with that kind of thing and enough kind of stability that it didn't hurt me. So I don't know if there's validity to it, but I liked kind of that idea of maybe it's okay to not completely shut yourself off from people and still be slightly open, but then also be wary.
Yeah, I think that's it's a hard deal, because you can swing the pendulum, you can be it's hard to find, where do you find the right place in that, because you don't want to cut yourself off completely.
Yes.
But you also don't want to fall into that vacuum.
Exactly. And it's hard, but it's nice. And it's nice to know for my listeners. And I know for me personally, it's nice to know that even my friends that are supposed to have quote unquote all the answers, which of course causes imposter syndrome, they struggle with these things too, because we're all humans. Just because one person studied the DSM-VR or DSM-V5, doesn't mean that they won't have these same things we all deal with, which actually humanizes it. And if anything, makes me feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and for sure. And I think that sometimes people think that automatically um you should be leading the perfect life because you should be, if you've had this, if you have this background, you should know what you're doing, and you should. And the funny thing is that I could, like, if somebody asked me what would you say, if I took my own situation, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which I have,
Mm-hmm.
and thought about what would you tell a friend or a patient or a client or whatever you want to call it, um in that situation, would be not always the way that I have responded. Um,
Right.
Even though I should know, but
Oh,
you're a regular person. You're not always,
yeah.
you know, you're not always a psychologist. So
Exactly. And so my husband has to do this in the military before I touch on the second thing you said about imposter syndrome, because I have a lot to say
sure,
about the women's in workplaces with
sure.
PhDs. Um, I'm sure you have to do this because my husband has had to do this as well, being an officer in the military, previously being enlisted, and then now like dealing with what does that mean on the outside and the inside. He has to leave the Navy at the door and basically to create two separate personas. And fortunately when he went to ship tour, it like kind of they melded back together, and we kind of lost each other. But now he's back to Scott and Scott at work. I
Yeah,
mean, the mustache really said everything there was, and I was like, please
yeah,
shave that. We're done. Get it away. So I think that that's probably something that like is harder to practice though, especially as someone who's, you know, geared up to have this kind of work and geared up to kind of have that compassionate lens to be like, wait,
yeah.
no, tonight's Sally at bingo night. It's not Sally needs to hear your life story while you're drunk over Malort.
Although that, yeah, that happens too. But yes, I agree. And I think, that's part of the reason why I ended up going into this research job, because I had previously worked clinically in an oncology unit. And
Mhm.
it was like I just got so burned out to the point where, like, I could not separate those things. And I would come home and, like, a friend or a family member or a partner would, like, vent about some what I perceived as to be like minor annoyances during the day. And I would say, like, shit, like,
Oh, you can say shit, Sally. You can say shit. You can say fuck. It's
I would
okay.
say, like, oh, I'm sorry. I met with 11 people who are dying today who would love to have the luxury of complaining about what you are right
Yeah,
now. And and
exactly.
and that was when I kind of realized, like, okay, I think it's
Yeah.
time to change.
Well, one of my before again, I go into talking about
Yeah.
being. We might not
Yeah.
even get to it. It sucks. Being a woman in the workplace sucks, and having a PhD sucks, and every men are awful. Anyway, I was going to say is I have a friend who went through cancer, and her name is Ryan. And I've been like I met her in San Diego, and she was a National Guard, and I had to watch my friend from afar on an island go through chemo without me, go through all of these treatments without me and her parents by her side. And she had this one friend, right? This one friend was like super shitty. And this friend would like be like, I blah, 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 blah. I wish sometimes I just wish I had cancer so people would feel sorry for me. And it's like, what?
No.
So she kind of had to reshape like who her friends were and like all of that, but also like there was times where I mean I would never complain to her because I mean what I was going through was just like yeah okay I had a mental breakdown, but like what she was going through I was like you might die, like that's scary. So I would
Yeah.
never come to her with my problems, but also that's just kind of person I am. I am also very close cards to the chest when it comes to things that really really are ailing me, which I'm working on and I'm working through. But she would have friends that would come to her with stupid stuff and they'd be like she'd be like well yeah but like did you have chemo today or radiation, like are you in a place to even like have this conversation with me, you know? And so um, that you just made me think of that. And it's not compassion. I mean, it's almost compassion fatigue, right? Because you've been
Yeah.
watching these people and helping them feel better or whatever their diagnosis might be, or, you know, even if the prognosis isn't good. And then someone comes home and they're like, oh, I went, I went to Panera and they were out of broccoli cheddar soup of bread bowls. And you're like, who cares? At least you can have a
Yeah.
bread
Fuck that.
bowl.
Yeah.
Let's go to
Yeah.
another Panera.
Yeah. That's totally it. Yeah. You've
I get
captured
you.
it.
I get you.
So
Yeah.
that's why I moved to research.
Do you like what you're
which
doing now? Mm. Oh.
uh,
Hey, it's, you know what? It's a job. It's a job, and
it's
yeah.
work. Work is work. It's different. It's been, yeah. It's I
It's
have
a
a good
different,
job.
yeah.
I have a good job.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna say yeah, but I'm gonna say there's some things I'm sure that are frustrating in the academia world coming back into it from the clinical side.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and you kind of touched the nail on the head, and I'm sure you've run into this in other facets of your career. I have as well. I am a woman. I might go by she and they pronouns. Sally might go by she and her pronouns, but by and large, I have a female parts, right? I'm a woman, she's a woman. And I became a marketing director at a company, and even then, like, I had a dude just like be just just misogynistic. It's like we're still in a world where it's run by like old white men.
Yeah.
And they hold everything. They hold I don't, that's too progressive for me. And we don't want any of that weird stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so you're like, you can't get a word in edgewise. And then you want to minimize yourself, even if you have the accomplishments. And that's what this podcast came from. You have the accomplishments, you have the accolades, you have the wherewithal, you have the cojones, but you're afraid to speak up because you're like, oh, well, they're going to just tell me I'm dumb, or they're going to just like assume that I can't have this conversation, even though you're totally able to have it. And I have seen this by and large in every single female I have known that is as smart and as accredited and as confident in their work as you are.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it is, because men.
I think that's why it is. But I think, and it's like a damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of situation, because like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not assertive enough. But if you do speak up, then whoa,
Oh,
no,
you're a
no,
bitch.
no. Yeah. So it is hard. And I think that I mean, I've had a lot of great female mentors. But when you really get to this point, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not everywhere, but
Yeah.
and I'm not speaking out on my own institution individually, but
You're speaking, these are the opinions of yourself, not
yeah.
where you work. And it doesn't matter because it's your own opinion. You're not naming
Yeah.
names.
Nope.
Yep, exactly. So I was like, I don't want to interrupt you. Were you going to keep going with that?
Oh, no,
Oh.
unless you wanted me to. I mean, I could go on about that
Oh,
for
we
a
could
long
go on
time,
and on, but yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
I think it actually leads into the next question,
Okay.
which I think is a good way for you and just a backstory here for my listeners, because I know Sally at a personal level. Sally and I have talked about what we would do if we didn't have to work in corporate America. We talk about it quite often. And we've been having this conversation a lot because I feel like my husband almost getting out of the military has kind of like opened my brain to like, oh, like what could we do that's not sitting in a desk chair or editing commas on a document or whatnot, So for you, Sally, I asked this question on the forum and I was reading through it, and it reminded me of all the conversations you and I have had where maybe we're joking, but also maybe we're serious, where we're like, maybe we should start a dog farm and yeah, I don't know, maybe we should do this. So anyway, what does success look like to you? And do you feel successful?
That is a timely question. I think I won't lie that I've several times sent emails to a superior at my institution saying that I'm going to apply to PetSmart. But
Why not?
and and the latest response I received was, if that would bring you more joy, then you should do it.
Whoa, that's a backhand.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Okay, bye.
Maybe I will.
Good luck with your
Maybe I will.
grammars.
Do they have good health insurance?
Patco does.
So I think success, I guess it goes back to like my naive original statement about having a life that makes sense. Like I used to think that having success would be that, like, oh, I got my PhD. Oh, I'm at a very highly respected university, you
Mhm.
know, those kinds of things. But I guess success for me now is more like personal happiness
Mhm.
and letting go of some of those, you know, kind of mile markers that I thought that I had as success in the past. Like
Yeah.
it's okay if I walk away from this. I'm not sure what I would do next. Um
Yeah. Well, I rage quit a job, and I rage quit a job in 2016, and I really was not in a position to do so, Sally, and I did it anyway. And I'm going to tell you right now, best thing I ever freaking did. But
yeah.
at the same time, I kind of had a cushion I could have fallen back on via my savings, my parents, maybe. And then I met Scott, and I was like, well, guess didn't make the worst choice by doing that, because I don't think I would have met him had I not, and I've been miserable, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
as far as where you're at, I think sometimes it's, if you don't like, see, I'm kind of a two-track mind here. Sometimes if you don't like what you like, if you not loving what you're doing, but it's making you money, start doing what you love on the side to kind of make sure that
Yeah.
those two things make you happy. So I know you are thinking about maybe fostering some kittens in coming the weeks, and which I'm excited about because I love kittens. They're cute. Although they're gonna terrorize your house. They're gonna ruin it.
I know it's gonna be a lot more. I think
Annie's
like
gonna be
my mom
like,
keeps saying like I think you've forgotten how much work that will be, but
I wanted to throw my dog away when he was a puppy because he was a nightmare. He was cute. I got him home, Sally, and he was like so cute, just a little baby
I
nugget.
know.
And then
And then you
all
had
of a
to go
sudden he
out all
woke
the time.
up. All of a sudden he woke up and he was like, I'm a terror. I was like,
Yeah,
no. But
yeah.
no, he was good. He's actually, I can't believe he ever calmed down to the point that he did.
He's a sweet boy. He's a sweet boy.
He's currently
But
in his bed, just like snoozing.
well, and it is a lot of work. But yes, and I do try to um focus on some of those nonprofits that
Yeah.
and that brings me, even though like people might call my apartment a sweatshop right now because of all the
Who's
fleece
calling it
blankets.
that?
Well,
Rich Sellers? Is it Rich Sellers? Rich, stop
no,
it.
don't tell him. Don't tell him.
I asked Rich to
Don't
be on
tell
this
him.
podcast.
I
He
don't
said
have my
no.
tree up. I just have a lot of fleece. I'm
Rich,
making blankets.
we'll get to Forbidden Bingo in a bit, but oh my gosh, no, you're making them, and you're donating them,
Well,
right?
and yes, it goes to this charity that's called the Live Like Roof Foundation, which provides both financial support, but also like medical bill support, but also like care packages to people whose animals have cancer. And so my
Oh.
previous dog died of cancer, and so I was just at an event, my bingo event the other night, at my quarter pub, and that benefited this organization. And I said, I feel like it has brought me such meaning to be able to do that because
Mhm.
it's like it's not just paying it forward, but it's paying it back, you know, because when
Yeah.
you've been there, you know what it means.
You know what that feels like in that moment, and like what that would have meant to you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that you do that. That makes me so happy. Like, obviously for selfish reasons, I know you're making Bourdain a blanket, but
But well, it's on its
yeah.
way.
Oh, really? Oh, I'll be
Yeah,
looking.
February 1st, I guess.
So I love that a lot. And also I am jealous that you live in Chicago, because it's actually one of the places I really wanted to move to, but it didn't happen. Maybe. But you said it's really cold, and I was like, everyone else is saying it's real
Well,
cold.
you know, it could be colder, is what we say, right? You
Yeah.
lived in Minnesota, so you know.
So you live in probably an area that's, I mean, I know how Chicago is. It's like you live in a neighborhood, and then you have like all your stuff nearby where you can just like walk. So you obviously have your corner pub that you go to, and you play trivia there, and
Yeah.
bingo. And so for my listeners, because this is going to go into fanaticals right about now, I think we've talked about the topic at hand, which is imposter syndrome, success, and all the things. But that's not what makes Sally Sally. What makes Sally Sally is the things that she's fanatical about and the things that she loves. And one of those things is a bingo. And that is how I met Sally. Sally was playing Forbidden Bingo virtually with DJ Rockstar Aaron, who I've actually known since my 20s. He is, when he walks into a room, he walks in pink mohawk first. Like you cannot miss the man if you're looking. He does not recall meeting me or telling me that he liked my sweater. I do not recall where I met him, but I know I've met him in person. But he's just one of those people that you meet and you just kind of, you don't ever forget him. He is a DJ. He is an LGBTQI plus icon. He is the president. I'm teasing. I don't think he really is. He's the president of Cyndi Lauper's fan club. I don't know. And he's just
one of them, probably.
Oh, one of them, definitely. And he has been putting graciously on, as a lot of people couldn't do their in-person things anymore. They were like, well, how do we get online fast? So Charlie Hides, who's on my shoulder right here, did Forbidden Bingo, or sorry, did Charlie Hides Bingo, which my friend Casey from Peloton invited me to, that I rode with. So it's kind of like and then all of a sudden I got served an ad for this other one that another person invited me to. I played the first time. I thought, this is the dumbest game I've ever played. I don't know what is happening. I didn't understand it. Then I just kind of kept playing and kept playing and kept playing and kept playing. And then it made sense. And now every time I play virtually, there is Sally, who's a regular. We've got Patrick. We've got a bunch of other people that just really are family. And we have a chat that we call FYBBs, which is, of course, Fuck Your Bingo Bitch. And it's fun. So if you want to play, it's every Thursday virtually, forbiddenbingo.com. Tips are strongly encouraged. That's my last plug. Sally, what are you fanatical about?
Beside bingo?
Yeah. But you're like really fanatical about bingo. Like you have to like concentrate.
No, I do. I really concentrate. Like, I don't know how those old, I don't want to say older ladies, the people at like, I've never been to like
Fox Hollows, like a casino. Yeah.
Like, how do they play like 10 cards at a time? I don't even know. Like, I can barely play one.
Well, but it's also distracting, yeah.
But so besides bingo, what am I fanatical about? Well, we've already talked about animals. I'm fanatical about that.
Sports is something you put down.
Sports, yes. So well, I've had like some leg issues in the last year, so I really haven't been able to be as active as I would like to be. But I do love, as a spectator, well, okay, so full disclosure, I do own stock in the Green Bay Packers.
Get off my podcast. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I actually like the Packers growing up.
I'm just gonna hit cancel right now.
Boop, in meeting.
I do. I can show you the certificate. But
that's awesome.
So it was a disappointing year for me in that respect. So I'm looking forward to baseball. I love baseball.
What team? What team?
Oh my gosh. Well, so I like to say I'm a fan of the game. So I grew up in Wisconsin and I loved the Orioles and I loved Cal Ripken Jr. And I actually got to meet him and I have a picture when we were both much younger. But here in Chicago, I would say, and this will get me put a target on my head by
no, it won't. It won't. Who's watching this?
Well,
Rich Sellers. He doesn't know what sports are.
He's not gonna know. Sorry, no offense, Rich.
We love you, Rich.
Because I live on the north side, so I go to the Cubs games. But I'm not as hateful about the White Sox as some people in Chicago.
Well, if you love baseball and you love the statistical aspect of it, yeah, exactly. If you love baseball, you're not going to care what team's playing. I just happen to live
on the north side, so I'm like, all right, we'll do the Cubs.
So I too love baseball, but for different reasons, Sally. So So I born in Minnesota. It's a sex thing. Get it? No, I'm just kidding. I love baseball because most of my 20s was spent in Denver. And there's the Coors Stadium, the Colorado Rockies. And that was the only, like, I think I went to a Twins game once when I was like super little. I don't remember it at all. Minnesota Twins.
Did you get blown out of the Metrodome?
I
Like
remember
they
Mall of
have the
America way more than I remember this Twins game. Like my
okay.
memories are like of Minneapolis, where one time my parents took us to the Broadway show of the off Broadway show of the Cats the musical, and I was like, that's wild. Also, probably one of the reasons I'm queer. In my brain, I was like, I could dress up like a cat forever, Jellicoe. And then
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, and then I remember going to Mall of America a lot, and I don't remember this baseball game, and I never got to go to a football game. My dad was more of a soccer fan, right? So like football with the feet, more of a soccer fan, and because I have people from the UK that listen and stuff, they'd be like, "What?
Yeah.
American football?" But I remember the Packers and the Vikings went to the Super Bowl in the 90s, and I remember, or sorry, they were going to, and then the Vikings lost and the Packers went, and then I rooted for the Packers. And I remember I got ostracized in elementary school because we are a Packers, Minnesota Vikings. And I love the Vikings, don't get me wrong, Skol Vikings, but not really my team. If I'm gonna pick a team, I'm gonna pick one that's way more funny to me, which is Cheeseheads.
Yeah, well, let me hang on. Can you hang on 1 second?
Yeah, you're gonna grab it. I love it. If you're listening, this is an audio visual on YouTube, but you can also. Oh, there she is. Okay, so I have to. Oh, she owns stock. She owns stock in the Green Bay Packers. I want to go to a game with you. That's on our bucket list. So baseball. We'll go back to baseball, but I will also say that I'm a Broncos fan, ride or die, Broncos, whatever. And one time I opened a door for John Elway and he didn't walk through it. Everyone has a John Elway story. I've lived in Colorado since I was 10 to 29. So yeah, I like the Broncos. Scott likes the Chargers. Who cares? Anyway, move on. But baseball. So the Rockies, they took the top level, and you're going to understand why I like the Rockies in a second. So the top level, and when I turned 21, they basically took down the top level of they call the rock pile at the Coors Field, and they turned it into a craft beer deck. And if you were smart and you live downtown, like I used to with my husband, when we first got married and first got together, we would walk from our apartment to the game. We would buy a 15 power play ticket. We would get there before first inning. And if you turn in your power ticket, so if you get there at the first inning, you can turn in the ticket, or you can get domestic beers 2 for $1. It was like Sam Adams, Coors, Bud Light, or no, sorry, not Bud Light because it's Coors Stadium. Anything on the Coors thing that's like a generic beer. You can get that 2 for $1. And then after the first pitch, you can turn in your power play ticket and you get $8 towards a concession. That can be a burger. It could be a beer. It can be a craft beer. It could be a cocktail, whatever. Like yeah, exactly. And then you just stand in the sun and go Rockies.
Well, you know what? My uncle, who's now deceased, used to be an usher at Coors Stadium for the Rockies. And so I've never been to a game there, but someday I would like to go.
Well, someday you and I will do a girls trip and we'll do Denver and we'll go to actual bingo in person and then a Rockies game. So it's gotta be summer.
I know, like the main event, we keep talking about it. I just need to get cleared to fly.
yeah. We gotta get the issues in check, but I'm hopeful that you're on the way to the mend because another thing you love is beaches. And I happen to be surrounded by them.
I do. And so I live vicariously now. I mean, we do have beaches here.
Yeah, which I might live by.
At this time of year are not, they're a little icy.
Yeah. I remember like growing up in the Midwest, like I really wanted to be whatever I wanted to be for Halloween and I could never because I'd have to like wear snow pants with it. And one time I was a princess and my mom got a call from the elementary school and they're like, she won't take her princess costume off. And my mom's like, why? And she's like, they're like, because we told her she's got to put snow pants on. And I was like, I refused.
Well, you know what? This year's Halloween was really unseasonably warm. And I was like, oh, all the kids can actually wear their costumes. That's so nice. Annie and I did like a little walk around and
maybe I'll be there next year. We never know. We never know where I'm going to end up. The Navy, you'll see not all of the world at all. You'll just see.
Yeah, well, I understand the uncertainty. Uncertainty is hard. But we'll meet up sometime.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Well, Scott's never been to Chicago, so he's like, because I talk about Chicago like it's the coolest place on the planet because I really think it is a very, very cool place. I've been to 3 Dots and a Dash. I've been to Happy Camper. They have got one in Denver now.
Oh yeah, 3 Dots and a Dash. That's
3 Dots and a Dash.
I love that. Yeah.
Gifts.
Well, obviously, I have a Hawaiian like piece to my
Well, you definitely have the aloha in your heart, so we would claim you. I don't know who's we. Apparently, me as the Kama'aina local right now until I respectfully leave. So I just skipped ahead in my thought process, and the next question is about unpopular opinions. And I saw this, and I don't judge you for it because I've had another guest that's had this opinion. What is your unpopular opinion and why? And I always say, as long as it's not racist, homophobic, or horrible to another person, you can have this. You can have this opinion. Opinions are like buttholes. We've all got them. You said something that made me laugh.
What was that?
Well, what do they wear on their heads if you're a Packers fan?
Oh, my unpopular. Oh, yeah. So I don't like cheese.
Not even squeaky cheese curds, Sally? No?
No.
You don't like to squeak
Nope.
on it?
Nope.
Oh.
I eat pizza, and that is the only cheese. And I say that's why I haven't been able to live in Wisconsin.
Well, also, like, what kind of pizza are we talking? Because I feel like deep dish is like a pound of cheese. That's a pie, like a soup.
I only eat deep dish when people come to visit, really.
I know.
It's kind of like a tourist thing, I think.
Yeah, it's like a luau out here. I'm like, here, we'll go get some pig.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did grow up eating just like thin crust pizza, but I think maybe what I shared with you, and I can't remember, was that recently my mom moved from her house of like 40 years
Mhm.
to a condo, and she bundled up a bunch of stuff and we could go through it or not. And some of it was like old school stuff. And there was an old school newspaper from like when I was maybe in fourth grade or something like that. And it was like, before technology, so it was like pieces of things cut and taped together and then photocopied. And one of the stories was that our class went to tour the cheese factory.
Oh no. What you do?
And that and it said like in it, it's like handwritten, like little kid stuff. But Sally doesn't like cheese, so she just ate crackers. So it was
Oh, you were like,
pretty
I
much.
just don't want this. They're like, but it's good. And you're
No,
like,
no, I'm sure like everybody else was probably in like heaven, and I was like,
but that's the most Wisconsin thing I've ever heard in my life. Because I, being born in Minnesota and lived there till I was 10, if you don't live or you've never lived in the Midwest, you wouldn't understand this, but like field trips would go across state lines. Like we would go to Iowa and we'd go sit in a one-room schoolhouse. And like I would tell people about this when I moved to Colorado, and they were like, that makes zero sense. Or they'd be like, we're gonna go check out a farm. And you're like, okay. Yeah, I remember the field trips we would take are wild. So a cheese factory is not that different. The only field trip I had in elementary school moving here, moving to Colorado, I was in 5th grade. We went to a landfill.
well, you know what? I can empathize with you because I grew up in a city that's called the prison city of Wisconsin.
What is that, Milwaukee?
No, it's Waupun.
Never heard of that.
4 prisons. Look it up.
Man.
It's been on different
yeah.
Making a Murderer.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a small town, but lots of prisons. And so often our field trips would be to prisons.
What?
And then
they're like,
yes,
like we gotta go to correction facility. Yeah, don't end up here.
Yeah. Basically, like, we went to the max and then we went to the minimum, and the minimum was kind of like better than a college dorm, and they had to sit us down and tell us like it may look nice.
They're trying to scare you straight.
Yeah, but we also did go to the sewage treatment or the water, whatever.
I know
treatment
this is awful,
like,
but I was so jealous. My sister got to go to the Rochester sewage treatment plant. I didn't get to go. She got to go to the poop plant and I didn't. I just heard my husband go,
you should not be jealous. It's not that fun. I would rather sit at my desk and be in school.
Um, one time, so I remember in 5th grade, my sister got to go to, because my sister's 4 years older than me. She got to go to, well, 5th grade, you learned about the birds and the bees and putting a pad on or something. And I skipped that entirely. We'll get to that in a second. But I remember in 5th grade, she got to go and they went to the Minneapolis Zoo or the aquarium or something, and they got to sleep under the dolphins and stuff. And it was so cool, the best field trip ever. And then I got to go to a landfill in 5th grade. That was what I got to do. But when I moved from Minnesota to Colorado for my dad's job, he was an engineer. He took a job from IBM and then Texas Instruments. That's what moved us there. I remember that like they had all learned about like the birds and the bees in like 3rd grade for some reason. And so I'm like on the playground and everyone's talking about like menstrual periods and stuff, and I didn't know what it meant. So I went home and asked my mom, and then my mom gave me the most scientific conversation I've ever heard, where she literally, I don't know if she owned a textbook or procured one out of her butt, but like she was like, and then your fallopian tube, and then the egg goes like this, and I was just like, what? I was like, I didn't know that's a thing. And yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I was immediately ostracized. You know what a period is? Ew. I was like, I don't know what any of these things are. I'm from Minnesota. I was supposed to go to the aquarium. It never happened. So stupid. Oh.
The landfill instead of
Yeah, I did get to go to the landfill. I feel actually this is a person, she's still a friend of mine. I feel really bad because like there was a wind. So okay, it was like a multi-part trip. We went to the landfill and they're like, here's where all your stuff goes and like recycle. And we're like, cool. And then they take us back and then we had to like go to a grocery store and like do calculations and figure out how to do like bulk buying as if it was doomsday. This is 2000. 2000. It's like 1999 to 2000. And then my friend Samantha, who is still somewhat of a friend of mine, and I follow her, she's pregnant now. And I remember because she had glasses, but she wasn't wearing her glasses that day, and a wind kicked up near this like a birch plant. We went to a birch plant and a piece of wood flew into her eye, like just, and she was like, ah, and like, so then we're like all trying to like help her, but no one has any like water to like flush her eyeball out. And I just remember she was crying, like, and she had these really beautiful like eyelashes and she was sobbing, and her mom was like one of the chaperones, and her mom got like all angry. She was like, you should know better. And I'm like, you should have corrected the wind.
Oh my God, that sounds like the most awful field trip I would never want to go on.
I mean, honestly, it was.
And I've been to prison.
You've been to prison. I'll take prison. Oh my gosh.
What I remember, Bianca, is that they showed us this. They had this like rudimentary like display of
contraband.
Contraband.
How old were you?
I don't even remember. And we were all like, why are there balloons?
You're like, wow, this looks like a fun birthday party. Who didn't invite me?
Yeah. Like, this is I swear to God, like
that's so funny.
Yeah. So you know what? Field trips.
We also had to go to this other thing. The other thing we would have to go to. I don't remember the name of it. It'll bug me, but it was like almost like a nature preserve. And you know what? I'm gonna Google it because it's gonna bug me, and I'll figure it out right now. Nature preserve.
Or was it in Minnesota? Or?
Yeah, Rochester, Minnesota. I went to a split middle school, so I went to Hoover and then Churchill and then Hoover. And then my sister went to different middle school. Okay, Quarry Hill Nature Center. And we would always have to go there, and like sometimes sometimes you do like a schoolhouse tour. That actually is a funny story. So we did a schoolhouse tour, and we all had to wear, like, the girls had to wear bonnets. I'm sure head lice was not on anyone's. Yep. And then we had to use fountain pens, and they whacked us with a ruler if we didn't write correctly. Yes, with calligraphy pens. And I cried. And I went home, I told my mom, and my mom called the school.
This is like becoming a story of the world's worst field trips ever.
And like, but we'd always go to Quarry Hill and they would teach us like there was also a planetarium, and the planetarium was at Lourdes High School in Rochester, Minnesota. So we go to the planetarium there. And we always go to the planetarium. I remember that. And we'd have to like hang out in the high school. And I remember the high school felt so big, and now I'm sure it's not, but yeah, there was like, those were like the main drag, the circuit of things we would do. But the Quarry Hill, we would do like a hike or whatever. And then they'd be like, this is scat from a squirrel. Like, can you map it up? I'm like, what are we learning right now? I'm never, when am I ever going to be stuck in nature where I need to know that a squirrel's poop is going to, I got to calculate it to the sun. What?
Yeah.
And so, and then also they would teach us about, because being in the Midwest, especially in Rochester, apparently was on like an Indian, like a native trail. So like we had quite a few Native American students that I went to school with. But nah, I don't know. The schoolhouse though, I remember vividly being like screamed at by like the lady. She's like taking her job very seriously. It's like, whoa, I didn't know I was in Williamsburg and I signed up for a reenactment of the Civil War. But
I was gonna say, is it like one of those places? Because like my parents, we didn't go on like lavish vacations or whatever, but often we would go to historical places, and it would be like people in their they would be, yeah, it wasn't necessarily reenactment, but it was like, they would be in their character, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was uncomfortable. And but also but not squirrel, but I did once have to dissect owl excrement and pull out like the bones and such of whatever.
Oh, did you have to dissect anything in high school?
Oh yes.
What did you dissect?
Oh man.
Oh, I'm gonna get canceled.
And keep in mind, like one of my specific phobias is dead animals.
Yeah.
So I dissected rat.
Mine's worse.
Fetal pig.
Okay, never mind. It's not worse.
Cow heart.
Okay.
Pig eye.
Okay.
I think it was a pigeon. And well, frog. Yeah.
What was horrible was I was a biology aide for my teacher. So fetal pigs is what we had to do, which was fine. Did it, no big deal. It was awful. I hated every second of it. But the worst part was the AP bio had to do cats, like sterile kittens.
No, I wouldn't.
And then I had to, he said, here's a bag of cats, please throw them away. And I had to go to a dumpster and throw them away. And I cried. Sorry, Mr. Title, if you're listening to this, you're not listening to this. If you're listening to this, no. that really fucked me.
Well, you know what? My biology and I guess it was zoology, whatever courses that I ended up doing that for. I had a good instructor. I'm actually Facebook friends with him right now, Mr. Burkhart. Yeah. But it was funny because funny isn't the right word. Interesting because like you would be paired in a group with like, it would be like a group of 4 per dissection.
Yeah.
And it was like I was always like with 3 guys.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't do it. Like
weird, because I had the same thing where it was like, I don't want to. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm Jeffrey Dahmer over here. Like,
I know, like I'll cut the pig's head off, I guess.
Yeah.
And I remember like sorry, this might be off topic.
Oh, it's okay.
I remember like because I was in sports, because I was in tennis, I think at that time. And so I had to miss part of the class. So I had to go by myself after school or during study hall or whatever. And I just remember like the worst thing was the eyeball. Like I just
Yep.
I don't like it. No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll move to something different. We'll move to
Yeah,
let's. I don't
because
know how we got there. You said
we
it was excrement, and suddenly it was fetal pigs, and here we are. But okay, so but I was only asking that because I was in Colorado, so I was just like wondering what it was like in
No,
Wisconsin. But
yeah.
so speaking of Wisconsin, so my dad restored a bunch of Austin Healey's, which is like a UK car, and there's a Healey Club that was in Wisconsin, or sorry, like in the Midwest. And when I was a kid, we used to take the Healey's, the Austin Healey that he made too. We used to take the Austin Healey's up. And as a kid, I remember we went to Door County as a trip, as one of the trips. And I just remember polka music vividly, a lot of polka music, a lot of bingo, and a lot of summer sausage. I remember that very well. And my mom, whenever I told her, like, oh, I have a friend Sally, she's from Wisconsin, she lives in Chicago. She's like, oh, B, do you remember the time the blah 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 blah, and then the polka and the accordion? And I'm like, I don't know why I remember, but yes, I do remember it. I was very young.
Well,
I was like maybe 4.
it is a key part of Wisconsin culture, and yes, as part of my gym class growing up was learning
Did you
polka, and
square dance?
I polka like
You polka
pretty well. I polka.
I remember learning it. I remember learning it too, but like Minnesota wasn't as avid because they're more like Scandinavian, so it was more like I don't even know what we would do. But yeah, polka. Yeah, I remember we learned square dancing. We learned that.
Oh yeah. Well, Bianca, if I can ever find it, so one of my more infamous figure skating performances was an entertainment competition.
Oh no, are you gonna say polka on skates?
Yeah. And so here's the thing.
I can visualize it.
My friend and I, because we always got stuck with like the 5 a.m. ice times because hockey had priority.
Oh, of course.
And
hockey always has priority, and they never went anywhere.
Yes, yeah, and they can vomit on the ice.
And it smelled like a ball sack always.
Yes. So, but my friend and I, there was this like okay, so this was cassette tape days. Like we had the audio thing was cassette, and there was this like random polka one, and so we would play it like at 5 a.m, and we would just like like
just bop.
Yeah,
you only have like one song choice.
And then we were like, oh, we should enter into Badger State Games entertainment category as our polka. And so we did, and we did, and it was like a total joke. I mean, but we did, and we got 3rd place. What? And the thing was, like, we kind of felt guilty because it was like supposed to be a joke, but it was like in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. And all these people just love polka so much.
They were like, whoa. What that had been like that,
like making fun of it, but they didn't realize it. So.
That had been like peak 90s, because I have a funny story similar to you about ice skating as well. So my first ever competition, my dad, I chose for we had a CD of songs, right? My dad would put them on a cassette, pick a theme song and you could skate to that. I chose MASH with zero knowledge of the fact that the Vietnam War was a thing. And even my coach was like, Lydia, who was Russian, she was like, are you sure that you want to do this? And I said, I like it. I'm doing it. And so I skated to
oh my God. What was your costume?
Ooh, good question. I don't know if I have a photo of it.
Was it like camo or was it?
No.
Okay.
No. I think it might have been, I think it might have been green velvet, like a green velvet kind of situation.
Crushed velvet.
Yeah. And then I also.
The stretched velvet.
Yeah. And I remember we had a lady who made skating outfits, and she said, you can pick any of these lycra fabrics you want. And I picked one that had like Chiquita bananas all over it and like hot pink and yellow, and it was gold and it was sparkly. And I'm again in my head, I'm like, and I didn't know I was queer.
Well, you know,
I just picked the funnest colors. My mom was like, that's expressive. And I said, I want it. I think that I'm going to look really cool inside in this thing. I wore it a lot. I wore it for practice and I loved it. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I wish I
Well, it
still had
made you
it.
happy. It made you happy. And you know, I think like the thing about figure skating is that it's so much like a narrow box. Um, you know, so anytime
Yeah.
you step outside of it and find happiness is a good thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll dig up a picture.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
send
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I can find the video, but
It's okay. If you
I'll
find the video, I would die. That's I
it
picture
was,
Polka
I
on
mean, it
skate.
was pretty like I mean, you could survey the people who know me and who were there, and it was pretty epic, but it wasn't really meant to be serious, and it was probably not bronze medal worthy, but whatever.
I'd give it, it's a number one in my book. Okay. So if you were a Muppet or a puppet character of any variety, who would you be and why?
Can I pick Red from Fraggle Rock?
Absolutely.
And why?
Why is red? Yeah. I
Because
mean, it looks
spunky.
like you. It looks like you. Where she's like, I love life.
Yeah, spunky. Spunky.
Okay. I dig it. I
That's
dig
what I
it.
would say. Like, it's not just because of my hair. Um, because I always liked her. Um,
She's also kind and she's like always keeping people on track. She's like
yeah,
always the morale booster. She's like, you got it.
yeah,
Like, let's keep going.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, someone Googled us. I Googled Red from Fraggle Rock just to verify. Someone said, is Red Fraggle a girl?
Oh,
I didn't know we have to gender them. I always
yeah.
thought I didn't know. Okay, I guess so.
I
I
thought
used
so,
to
but
have like yeah, I used to have the Muppets toy of her, like the McDonald's or Fisher Price toys of her. I
yeah,
didn't know what it was. I just thought it was a Muppet with pom poms. I was like, this is cool. I like it. Yeah, but I've heard I've seen Fraggle Rock since then. I think Fraggle Rock's a really cool show.
yeah. But I don't think there's a Muppet that I would disagree with if somebody assigned me to them. I don't think
Right.
there's one.
But
I mean,
if
I
you
probably don't want to be animal, not
oh
animal,
yeah, no,
but
no.
um,
I'm animal on speed, apparently, according to Scott. But I also ask this, and this is a flyby question. If you could
sure.
sleep with only one Muppet from the Muppet Show, I mean, or Sesame Street, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. I'm sorry.
Like, probably, I don't know if this is the true answer, but based on my history, it would probably be Oscar the Grouch.
You'd be like, knock, knock.
Yeah.
Do you want to get busy? And you'd be like, tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you'd be like, I had a really great day. How was yours? Terrible.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fine. He lives in a trash can, which is basically a metaphor for all of dating.
Yes.
I love that. That's such a unique answer. I've gotten a lot of Kermits. I've gotten a
Oh,
lot of
really? Well,
yeah,
Kermit would be like a kind one. But
yeah.
no, I automatically went to Oscar the Grouch.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're
That probably
winding.
says
Yeah.
like my psychodynamic friends would probably say that says a lot about me, but I'm not
I don't think it says
psychodynamic.
anything. I think it says that it's funny. That's what I think it says. It says it's funny. So as we're winding down, thank you again, Sally, so much for being on the podcast. The last question before I turn it over to you to promote anything you'd like to talk about is what is making you happy in the world currently?
Well, I think the number one thing I can say is
Annie. Oh no, where's she going? Annie, she's so cute. She's like,
yeah.
Mama, what?
Well, she's had a little bit of a rough day, but so
Oh,
I don't know. She's
she got a
wearing
little
her,
sick, poor thing.
yeah, her fuck cancer bandana from the other night, and she's what makes me happy. And then what makes me really happy is my friends near and far, and a lot like that I've never met in person, but I feel like are closer than the people that I know. That what else makes me happy right now? Spring training is coming up. And
Baseball.
yes. And I think like, organizing is gonna make me happy.
I think so too. And I'll help you with that offline. Sally, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Again, for all of my listeners, this is pleasedon'tkickmeout.com, the only inclusive podcast about imposter syndrome. If you like what you hear, rate us a 5 wherever you get your podcast. Share it, tell a friend. Feel free to reach out to Sally, which I'll share some loose contact information in the description of this and also on YouTube if you're listening for your earbuds. Again, Sally, I'm so excited to have you on here. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you're my friend, and I'll see you at bingo later on.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, bye.